You know what I love more than Destiny? A lot of things. Like, actually, like, I'm not really big, huge Destiny fan, so, you know. What that means going into this game is I had pretty much no inherent biases towards the genre. And as a matter of fact, I may have been going in ready to be impressed because I just thought, if this is gonna be able to impress me, it's gotta be able to do stuff similar to, say, what Warframe can pull off. Not that it has to be the same game, but it's gotta meet those kind of quality standards for me to be able to appreciate this, especially when it's a full-priced game compared to a free-to-play game. And, oh god. I don't want to say it was a raging dumpster fire, but, you know, it is a pile of trash, and it's currently burning right now, so... Alright, so I'm just gonna be frank. I'm gonna get the good out of the way right now, alright? Game's very pretty. I like the aesthetic, I like the art style, I like a lot of the art design choices. For the most part, when it comes to things in the visual department, from an artistic perspective, generally, fucking tops, alright? I mean, just look at the fucking storm, man. I love this thing. From, like, visually, it's fucking great. That's about the only absolutely positive thing that I have there. There are other things that are comparatively positive. For reference, I played the Anthem VIP Demo, followed by the Public Demo. And what you're generally going to be seeing here is mainly footage from the second weekend where everyone was able to play, as opposed to just the people who pre-ordered it. And they fixed a few issues that were present during the launch day of the first demo, but, you know, that's the equivalent of, hey, you know, we put out our own dumpster fire. It's not, it doesn't mean that you're still not dealing with a huge pile of garbage. It's just a slightly improved pile of garbage. The main improvements that I've seen between the two weekends are the load times, generally speaking, were faster. There were much less crashes, much less bugs, much less infinite load times, and generally speaking, things were a bit more open to earning loot or making progress in the game. I don't know if they actually tweaked the numbers or anything, but I feel like I was generally earning more loot, earning more experience, and generally being able to try more things in the game when I was playing on the free public demo. That being said, let's go forward to the bad. I'm insanely worried for the kind of quality we're going to be seeing from this game on the launch day of the demo. And I have to clarify, they call this a demo. They didn't call it a beta. They didn't call it a stress test. They called it a demo. And my thing at this is, when you have, you know, like an open alpha or a private beta or whatever you want to call it, usually the idea is a sort of compromise. In the sense of, we're willing to give you this game for, play it for free or for cheaper, in the case of, like, Steam Early Access games, and it's not going to be quite as good as a launch title, but you get to try a game that you're excited for early, and in exchange, we're going to be able to use this as data to help improve the game, because you can say, hey, load times suck. They're like, okay, make it better. Hey, it crashed here. Okay, we can make it better. You know, that's the trade-off. That's understood when people sign up for alphas and betas and, like, closed experiences. And when you have a network stress test, that's meant entirely to be a matter of, this isn't even meant to be something in regards to, like, showing the quality of the full game. We just want to make sure that our servers don't go fucking apeshit day one. And that's also a fair compromise. But the fact that it's called a demo and they were pressed on this and repeatedly called it that means this is meant to show you what the full game is like. And then immediately, as soon as there were issues, they backpedaled hardcore, alright? Yeah, I haven't seen backpedaling this hard since Lance Armstrong on the Tour de France being played on my VCR backwards. And they said that the build used in the demo was 6 weeks old. Why? Like, I understand there's a lot of things about game development that I'm completely unaware of, but my thing is, if you did this for, say, discs, you know, things you have to distribute to everywhere in the US and Europe and Canada or whatever, and that would be a good explanation, because maybe it does take you 6 weeks to get a demo disc out to everyone else. But this is, like, downloadable. Like, you know, you shouldn't have to patch your fucking demo. But I digress. What are the actual problems with the demo? First thing is actually being able to play it. If you want any context for this, go check out Dr. Disrespect's stream of it, where it was very difficult to even get in the first place. I personally didn't have this issue, but one of the issues that I did have on my first session, which unfortunately I did not have recorded footage of, is I just went to free play, alright? I didn't do the mission, I didn't do the raid, I didn't do anything that was strictly speaking multiplayer. I just went to free play, hoping that I could just get my bearings, learn how to fly and jump and shoot the thing. But every 10 or 15 seconds I get a message saying there is a server error, and while it didn't boot me out of the game, it does prevent you from moving or shooting or flying. It literally would interrupt every action, and I got killed on 3 separate occasions because of this message when I wasn't playing with anybody in the first place. So, that's pretty bad. Now, that aside, they did confront some of these things, and eventually more people were able to come in, and they said a bunch of techno jumble that, I'm not gonna lie, I don't fucking get why they had this many issues on it, if they knew that these many people had pre-ordered and were gonna do it, but if I'm gonna be, you know, a little bit fair to them, at least they're doing it now, when it's just a demo, and, you know, basically a beta or stress test, as opposed to launch. However, I would bet my firstborn child they're still going to have network problems on the first day anyways. Moving on with that, as soon as you can get in, you're introduced to a bevy of problems. One problem that has been very consistent is the 95% loading problem. Every time you get to around 95%, if you have this bug that is, it will just load infinitely. It won't, like, the game won't be freezing, you know, it won't, like, crash, but it will just be at 95% perpetually, and there's no way to make it actually continue to load. You just have to, like, alt-tab out of the game and, like, close it. I had to do that on 5 separate times during the first weekend. And that's just kind of the times that it didn't just completely crash. So, I think the total number of times that my game was just completely stopped, not of my own accord, was a total of 11 times over the course of the 2 weekends that I played. That was 1 crash on the public weekend, and then the rest of them being during the VIP demo weekend. Following other technical issues, we have insanely inconsistent frame rate. Just for clarification, here are what my specs are, alright? It's not a powerhouse, it's not beefy, but it's, at the very least, sufficient enough to run a lot of games fairly well. Alright, I'm not going to be running the latest games at Ultra on 4K at 120 FPS, but you get the picture. So, me being able to play this thing on, say, high in an area that has no need of other players or network connection or latency, I figured I'd be able to get decent stuff, but it would never get above 30. I had to go down to medium just to get it to even go above 40. And so many areas in the game would just immediately drop to 30. There's this weird bit in, like, the bazaar in town where, like, everything else runs generally at, like, 60, and then that one part is at 30. It's just weird, you know? Like, I get it, there's more stuff to load, but, like, why this one thing? It's just very strange to me. And getting into the actual game world, you cannot get consistent performance out of this. It would just go and chug up and down between 60 and 30 constantly. And it's really, really weird, because, like, I don't know much on the tech side, but it would never drop below 30. And I think it's because of slowdown. Like, it would literally make the game run slower if it would usually drop frames, because, you know, you gotta have it look, like, somewhat consistent visually, but I don't know if I'm a fan of that. It's very, very strange. Not counting that, though, we also have issues of rubber banding. For clarity, this is what rubber banding looks like. And to put it in layman's terms, because I don't fully understand it myself, the server doesn't actually remember what you've just done, or it didn't register what you just did, so it will put you and the world back into its state that it last remembers you being. So, I didn't fly forward there, at least it doesn't remember me flying forward there, so it, snaps me back into place. This happens not just with position, but with damage. You'll see that I damaged these eggs here, and none of their health drops down, because it didn't register that I actually fired those bullets, so nothing takes damage. And this is the only thing I have for it footage-wise, but this happened on 3 separate occasions, this one just being the worst of them. On the other thing with technical issues, occasionally the game would not actually register that I had completed a level or beaten a mission or anything at all. I would just beat an area, and I would leave, and then I would get back, and I would get no loot, I would get no experience, even though it said I had completed a world event, or even in one case, I had completed a whole story mission, and it had said that I beat it, and I was ready for the next story mission, but I got nothing from it. I had none of the loot that I had picked up, none of the resources that I had gathered. It was just gone. And you can't repeat story missions in the demo, so you're fucked. Probably the worst of it is when I did a mission which took, in the ballpark, about 20-25 minutes, just because it was hard. We kept dying, we kept going around doing stuff again. The mission probably isn't that long, but that's how long it took, give or take 20 or so minutes. So, I beat it. I get the 95% loading glitch. I alt-tab out, the game crashes, I go back in, and the first message that pops up is actually one that kind of surprised me. It's like, oh, we noticed that you left in the middle of an expedition. Do you want to go back to that right away? And I'm like, oh, it actually remembered where I was. That's pretty great. So I can, pick off where I left off, and maybe I'll go back and get my stuff. So I load into it. Then it says there's an error. And it says expedition complete. And then I get back to the hub world, and the mission is no longer available. And I got no loot or EXP for what amounted to half an hour of my time playing the game. And again, it's not going to matter in the long run because this is just a demo, but if this happened in the actual game, that actually affects progress. And that's fucking bad. But let's get all these things aside, because here's the thing that I'll say. These can be addressed. I put these things here, these can be addressed for the full race. So, loading times, the bug especially, they can be fixed. Frame rates, they can be addressed, there can be optimization. The bugs about progress, those can be addressed. Everything I've mentioned here, from network to the graphics to the frame rate, all these can be addressed. But one thing that is much harder to address is the actual core design principle of the game. And that is, do the gameplay loops, or we'll say the things that you do repeatedly in order to progress the game, are these enjoyable? Are they fun? Is it satisfying enough to carry a full game? And as it stands right now, I don't think it is. The controls are kind of glidey. I don't know what it's like specifically with mouse and keyboard controls, because while I did play on PC, I did not use mouse and keyboard. Specifically because I heard people saying that the flight controls with the mouse and keyboard are abysmal. My experience with the controller felt as if the reticule, or pretty much anything that I did when it came to aiming or just performing actions in general, felt as if it carried momentum. Not in the way that a good weighty game feels, when you're playing as a tank and it, keeps moving after your stop because you're just doing something really hefty. I'm talking about when I'm moving my crosshair for my gun, or when I'm trying to fly. It would feel as if it would just kind of keep going even though I had clearly stopped. And I tweaked the sensitivity on things a lot. It never hit a sweet spot. It never really felt right. And maybe they can tweak this. I've heard that they've addressed some of these and that it generally feels better for launch, but even then, the actual act of going out and doing these things, even if it was completely successful, wasn't particularly great. It usually involved, hey, go to this place to grab the thing. Oh no, the guys are there. Shoot the guys. And then you get the thing, and then the mission ends. And, of course, I'm being hyper-reductive, you know, because you could do that with any game. You're like, Mario's where you jump over the thing, and you get to the end of the place you walked to, and then you jump over the turtle, and you have girl now, you know, because obviously you can reduce it, but since I have no context for who any of these people are, and I don't really know much about the world, that's all I have to go on. I go up and bad guys show up. I kill these bad guys, I move on to another thing, and combat is, like, okay, some of it feels pretty good, like the powers, for example, they can feel very satisfying if you grab the right ones, and some of them combo off of each other. Lord help you if you know what ones actually do combo off one another. The game doesn't tell you which ones do. Supposedly there's a system of, like, you know, powers that set up things, you know, like, I don't know, I'm gonna call it, like, gasoline ones, you know, and then the other ones, like, they actually set them off, you know, like a match, you know, being thrown on the gasoline. Boom, you put them together, big bang, you know? So, you know, when you have ones that are supposed to be a catalyst for these things, they never quite make it clear which one of these set them up for other ones, and I wish they did, because that's kind of what kept me from doing effective builds through about half of this demo. I would want to try out all these new powers, but then when I actually do try them out, all of them are like weak level 1 variants of them, so they do next to no damage, and so even though they look really cool, they're just not effective unless you do combos, and since you don't know which ones do combos, you're kind of shit out of luck unless you change them up a bit. And this is where we get into the other big thing of, you know, being able to kind of choose out your kit is very, very important in a loot game. And in this game, if you want to change out your gear, and I don't mean like mid-combat or anything, but pretend you're just completely out of combat, and you want to change one thing, maybe even like free roam. Like, I'm just wandering the world, and I want to try out a different thing. You know, maybe I don't want to shoot a missile, maybe I want to shoot a laser because I just picked that up. Here's the process, alright? Pause the game. Go to the map tab of the pause menu. Hold down X in order to leave free play mode. Go through a loading screen. Wait for it to show the results of your expedition. Skip through all of that. Wait for another loading screen. It tasks you to go to the hub world. So, you're in the hub world, then you have to go to the forge, which usually is right there, but you have to walk over to it, wherever distance it may be. You have to go through another loading screen. You're then in the equipment tab. You have to then choose what equipment you want. Hold down B to exit the forge. Another loading screen. You then have to turn around and get into your Javelin. Another loading screen. Then you have to select the free roam mission again. And then you get another loading screen. And then you're back into the world. Why the fuck did I have to do all of that shit when I just wanted to change a single thing? Like, I didn't want to change my entire Javelin. I didn't want to change my entire kit. I just wanted to change a single thing when I was not in combat. And I had to go through that many loading screens and that many menus just to change one thing. And you know what? Maybe that wouldn't bother me as much if I could just look at what my shit did. I had a moment where I had equipped an ability and I completely forgot what it did. You know, I would use it and I wouldn't understand what its effects are and how it would benefit me, so I'm like, let me just check the menu about my equipment and see what it is. It doesn't tell you anything. It tells you the names of all the equipment you have, but it doesn't actually give you any details to that. So if I even want to figure out what my shit does and not change it, I'd have to go through all the steps I just detailed. What the actual fuck? Why? So that's how this game kind of feels right now. It feels very tedious and long-winded. You know, when I go out to fight these things, I don't feel like I'm doing much. I feel like there's just these random people wandering this, like, empty world that has very little value, and they're just kind of doing their own shit. I show up and I just use, you know, my guns, which feel okay, my powers, which feel cool, and then the movement abilities, which Generally speaking, the flying feels good for me, you know, but yeah, controls aside, they generally speaking feel pretty cool, although they need some balancing. That aside, when I go and kill all these things and then I move on to the next area, it literally just feels like a run and gun. Like, go to a place, kill some things, move on to the next thing to shoot some stuff. And obviously there's a lot of games that have this, but the core needs to feel satisfying. The core in this feels just, I don't know, like a hollow kind of shooter, you know? The actual loot grind in this is weird. Like, not even like I was grinding specifically for loot, but just going and trying to find shit to do that was satisfying. Felt kind of like a burden, in a sense. Especially because how much you actually get for stuff is kind of trivial, you know? I just wanted to try another gun. I just wanted to try something else, level up, just anything to make my character more effective. And for the most part, it just felt kind of samey. And considering that I've only put in, like, I don't know, like maybe over the course of these 2 weekends, and mind you, I was explicitly trying to show as much as possible for the sake of gathering footage, so I played more than I usually would have given the circumstances. I put about maybe 5 hours into this thing over the course of the 6 possible days that this demo has been up. And I don't really feel like much was done. There's only one aspect of this game that, to me, feels fleshed out and cool and good. And obviously it's because I have my biases with this, but it's the Storm class of Javelin. Alright? I was initially placed with a Ranger like everyone else. And when I was doing a loading screen, you know, I saw that it said, you've unlocked the ability to unlock another Javelin. I'm like, okay, cool. But the game had a ton of bugs, and it wouldn't actually let you choose another one. So, what do you fucking do? So that was kind of, we'll say, the disappointment I had from the first weekend, is I was not able to play the class that I wanted that I'd seen from the trailers. The Ranger class is not a bad class, it just didn't appeal to me. Like, its gameplay style didn't appeal to me, visually it didn't appeal to me. You know, its benefits and tactics didn't appeal to me at all. So everything was just, it just didn't work for me at all. And so then second weekend comes up and they've unlocked all of them. I get to try the Colossus and the Interceptor. I get to try all 4 of these classes. So I immediately go for the Storm, and it just feels right. Like, it feels like they actually had good ideas about how this class was supposed to work, its benefits, how it would function in relation to the other classes, and it just clicked more. And maybe it's just because of my own playstyle, but nothing felt more satisfying than actually trying this class out and seeing what it could do. You know, its main things are its elemental abilities, which generally speaking are pretty good. They can afflict status ailments, which help your team out. These are very, very easy to combo or to set up combos for other players. It has a primary focus on floating. You can see in the footage that there's a sort of hazy blue orb surrounding it at all times, and at any time you go into hover mode, its shields activate. It's had shields the whole time, but they're much more effective when you're hovering, and you have a lot of juice. I mean, you can hover for a very long time in this thing, and you're encouraged to basically be hovering as much as possible, because your shields are much less effective if you're on the ground or if you're just in regular flight mode. You know, not to mention that all of your dodge moves basically make you incorporeal, at least compared to the other ones. So you have a pretty good toolkit to work with. The other ones that I have are the Interceptor. You know, you're basically like a robot ninja. You know, you're very fast. You have triple jumps, triple dodges. You have what amounts to unlimited melee attacks. You know, most of these classes have a melee attack which has a cooldown if you successfully land a hit. So this one not only has melee combos, but there's no cooldown if you successfully land any melee attacks. And that's pretty nice. It allows you to move in quick, you know, deal some damage, and then run away really fast. So it's just a really good, satisfying class. It felt very good to be able to just, like, dodge and bob and weave in and out of battles, especially against some larger opponents. So that was nice. Then you have the Colossus, and I'm gonna chalk this up to personal playstyle, but if I were to have say in this game, I would completely rework the Colossus from the ground up. Because it has a cool idea. It doesn't have shields that surround it constantly like it does a la Halo or the other classes. It has a actual physical shield that you have to bring out. And it's, generally speaking, pretty good compared to the other ones, and it recharges pretty nicely, and it's directionally based. But that's the problem, is, you know, shields recharge, health doesn't, and so if you aren't consistently situationally aware of where shots are coming from, you just have to take the damage, and if you're not specifically spec'd out for more health, it's pretty bad, you know, and it's slow, and there's a lot of other things. Like, I get that it's supposed to be slow because it has, like, really big weapons and really big damage dealer, but I didn't find the damage output to be significantly more than what the other ones were. You know, maybe it's supposed to be, you know, like the tank, but I figured it was supposed to be, you know, heaviest hitter, but just very, very slow, and then situational defense, but instead it just kind of did slightly more than the Ranger. But when I looked at, like, people who had specialized kits for the Storm and Interceptor, I'm like, we're doing just as much damage. You know, it's literally just about how you build it, how you focus it, and maybe I'm just shitty at the Colossus class, but I found it to be borderline useless compared to all the other classes, you know. You have this game about, like, moving constantly and using all these abilities, and while it has those, it's just so slow and clunky. It just seems counterintuitive to what all the other classes are meant to be, and I'm not saying you can't have a tanky kind of class in this game, but there's work to be done, and I would seriously do a rework of it. So that's about where it is, you know. Game is not looking so great. It's a demo. They have more to work on. I guess the one thing that I think worries me is this, and I'll keep this brief since this could change and it could improve in the final product. All the dialogue options they have with characters in this game amount to only 2 choices, and there's nothing by way of character customization. So what this means is this is a BIOWARE RPG where your choice of who you are is a boy or a girl, and then the dialogue options that you have are, you know, left or right, yes or no. There's not, like, any huge amount of things. To my knowledge, it's just those 2. It's not even, like, the typical, like, you know, 4 selection dialogue wheel from the previous games that BIOWARE has done. It's so much more limited, and I'm just like, why? And I'm not trying to be insulting to this, but, like, why would you have BIOWARE, of all people, make a game that is this rudimentary and basic? Like, I could easily see this being done by, like, Bungie and Activision, you know? Like, not to shit on them, because I know people, like, love the Halo franchise, but their stories aren't rich tapestries akin to what you'd get out of RPGs, you know? So when you have a story that's, you know, similar in a lot of ways to Destiny, that's just vague, esoteric bullshit that looks really epic for the trailer, but then nothing means anything when you actually get to the game, because it's just a bunch of sci-fi fantasy mumbo-jumbo. You know, you don't really have anything to build a character on, nothing to build a world on as much, you know? You have a bunch of lore and shit, but it's not there when it's trying to establish you as a character. So the fact that you only have 2 dialogue options that, to my knowledge, don't actually affect the story or your character or pretty much anything is, like, it's a waste of what BioWare is capable of. You could have any developer make this game about a bunch of big old robots and stuff, but now it's just a loot shooter with Iron Man suits trying to ape a lot of things that Destiny does. And, you know, Destiny isn't an original game. It aped a lot of things from a bunch of other things, you know? I'm looking mainly at Warframe. Warframe does everything that Destiny and Anthem are trying to do, just notably better in, like, every single regard. So that's kind of where I'm at, is I don't see this game as filling that niche. It doesn't feel like it's going to satisfy me. I don't think it's going to be a good product that's just not my taste, because that's my thing with, like, RTS games. Not a fan, but not my taste, you know, because I can acknowledge it's just not a genre I'm into. This game doesn't feel like any of these things. It just feels like it's inferior compared to its contemporaries, and that's even if we discounted all the shit with, like, the bugs and everything else. So, right now, my conclusion is bad impression. You know, when you're doing a demo, you're supposed to put your best foot forward, and I didn't get that at all. I felt like this was a bad overall impression, and if it didn't require me to pre-order the game to play the demo and get this footage in the first place, I don't think I would have been incentivized. Like, if I just played the demo, I probably would have waited for like YouTube reviewers that I trust to go and do it. Not actual sites. I don't trust IGN, I don't trust Polygon, Kotaku, I don't GameSpot, Rock Paper Shotgun, fuck all of them. Not them. Actual fucking reviewers that you trust because you know their styles and their biases and their love and, you know, their knowledge on YouTube. So that's what I was gonna wait for if it wasn't for this. If you want my word on it, based on what you know from what I've seen from games and everything I've discussed here and the footage you're seeing, I'm just gonna say this: it looks much better than it is, because that's exactly what they do with like E3. Like, it just looks so epic, it looks so great. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to do that because it looks cool. It doesn't feel as cool. All right, I won't say I had no fun, but if the whole game is gonna be like this without much change to this formula, I just couldn't recommend it. So that's it. I don't have like a big score or anything. Just if there's another demo weekend that you want to give it a shot, give it a try. Hopefully there's like a free demo that they can try somewhere else, but I'll give you an updated video when it comes to actual launch day on if they fixed any of this. But in the meantime, I'd skip this one.